Welcome, folks. This is Jeremy Conman. I am coming to you live with another episode of Quizzing in America. Today, we are going all the way out to Eugene, Oregon, and a gentleman by the name of Forrest Walker Davis, who runs forward trivia, I guess, kind of, out of Eugene, Oregon. And a couple things before we get started. One, to everybody who has listened so far, thank you so much. To people that have reached out and told me they liked it, thank you. And for people that have reached out and given me some constructive feedback, thank you even more. In fact, I think one of the listeners that listened from Eugene that may have heard about the podcast from Forrest reached out and said, hey, you know what? You're kind of interrupting people when they're telling their stories. Try and not do that so much. And I listened and I said the same thing. So to that person, thank you so much, because my goal today is, one, not to interrupt Forrest when he's telling a story, and two, not to use the word like so much, because I noticed I've been doing that a lot. So without further ado, welcome Forrest from Eugene, Oregon. How are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been doing trivia, and then we'll kind of get into discussing the trivia business a little bit.
Yeah, hi Jeremy. I'm Forrest. I'm originally from Cleveland, and I've lived in Eugene since 2016 and Oregon since 2014. I've been a participant in pub trivia since I was old enough to drink, and on and off host since 2014 or so, but full-time host since 2021.
Very nice. And you run your own game, right? So it's your kind of your company. You do not only the bars, you do private events, stuff like that.
Yeah, chief cook and bottle washer. It's just me. I have some help from some people occasionally when, seek help from online communities, and my partner helps occasionally, but for the most part, it's just me.
But I love a good one-man show.
Yeah. And it's nice that I'm only accountable to myself, but it also means I have no one else to blame.
That's true. But, you get to take all the credit, too, when things go well, which is nice. So what is your, obviously, I'm assuming like most of us in the trivia world, you kind of grew up playing games, liking trivia, watching Jeopardy. You said you've been playing since you were old enough to drink. I'm not sure exactly how long that is. You can tell us or not. But what made you start hosting your own quizzes? How'd you get into that?
I'm 38, so it's been a minute. But yeah, I was into Jeopardy. I was into the quiz shows. I did this thing in middle school called Triple Middle Challenge. I did academic decathlon in high school. There's like all sorts of quizzing related things throughout my life. Has been a through line. I moved to Bend in 2014, Bend, Oregon, and I started going to this pub quiz at a local spot called The Lot. And the hosts of that show stopped doing it. They left. They retired. Decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And then all the regular teams decided that we were all going to collectively host, which is a very unusual situation. So I would end up hosting about every fifth week, which was a lot of fun because it gives you a lot of time to think about what you want to do. And if you're a regular there, then you know what kinds of questions have been asked. And it was a lot of fun. Everybody got that hosted there had their own different style. And so you got to see what worked and what didn't from so many different brains. It was awesome. And then when I moved to Eugene a few years later, I went to college at the University of Oregon, and I was working at a brewery, selling stuff at the homebrew shop. And the guy who was doing trivia in the pizza place on campus, the same guy owned the pizza place and the homebrew shop where I worked. That trivia host quit, and the boss was like, "Don't we have somebody working here already who hosts trivia or used to?" And I stepped up and decided to do it. And I was hosting on campus until I graduated in 2019, retired, handed the reins over to somebody else. And then I got an opportunity to do it again at another local pub at Falling Sky and Gratitude. And so I've been doing it full time 2021. Our first day was supposed to be March 15th, 2020.
Well, we know how that went.
That didn't end up happening, but so we took a year off, and then we came back in 2021 and was doing 2 nights a week, and then 3, and then 4, and then 2 again, and 4 and 5 different places around town. So
you had a lot of time to kind of hone the craft there in that year you had off the delay. So you're in Eugene, Oregon, which is, of course, is home to the University of Oregon. Go Ducks. Is a beautiful, beautiful town, by the way. I was there for the first time about a year ago and just loved it. I actually met the woman who I believe is now your mayor. She happened to be
Yeah,
eating next to us when we went out to lunch. And so I forget her name, but I met her. She was a lovely woman. Being in a
Knudsen.
college town, do you find that you have a younger audience and you have to like scale your questions because like, oh, most of these people weren't even alive in the 90s? Or is it a mix?
It's a very, very mixed demographic. And when I was hosting on campus, that is a captive audience of, 19 to 25-year-olds with a few teachers thrown in. And the questions there, I definitely had to tailor specifically to that demographic. And it wasn't easy because I am not 21. So I did have to change up a lot of my pop culture references. I had to try to be hip and with it, and I am not hip and with it. But that's a thing that we have to do. That's a to try to keep up with trends and to educate ourselves and to talk to people who are different ages. And but my regular quiz is not on campus. Is 6 to 96.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a regular audience guy. His name's well, I'm not going to tell you his name, but he's 8. At every week he comes up and asks me if I have any Pokemon questions today.
So it's funny. I played a quiz last night, and they do a halftime question, which is a kind of a speed round where they give you a question with like a dozen answers, and you get 1 point for every correct answer.
Mm.
And last week it was names of the original Lemony Snicket books, which
Oh my
I
God.
did know a few of them. Like I was like, I believe it's like The Bad Beginning. Like they're all alliterative until you get to the last one, which is like the last one, and there's the penultimate peril. So I knew like 4 or 5 of them, and I was able to get some points. I went last week because the week before, or I went last night because the week before I finished in the place where you got to choose a category. So I chose 80s hair bands, which is my generation and one of my rock star categories. But then the halftime question was naming Pokemon trainers, and there was some other tidbit to it from the red and the blue. And I don't know anything about Pokemon. So I
Yeah.
played with a couple people who were also both older than I am, and so we got 0 on that question. So we were in dead last going into the second half of the game. Yeah, questions like that can definitely skew a game
Oh
when
yeah.
they're generational. It's tough. But the occasional Pokemon question is fine, and I have a limited Pokemon knowledge. I know what a Charizard is. That's probably not very impressive, but yeah, Pokemon not one of my strong suits. Now, so when you're writing questions, do you have like a method that you go through or a way that do you look at like the date and go, I'm going to ask about what happened on this day? Or do you kind of theme rounds, or what's your style or process for coming up with questions?
Well, the theme is always going to be different as far as the. Sorry, can we edit? Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
so
I'm
uh,
sure we.
yeah, so I like categories that have a gimmick, right? So they might have a secret theme, or they might be based in language, or they might have some relation. Things that are all come in yellow boxes. I had one that was like National Geographic has a yellow box. The KGB building is a square yellow building. There's milk duds. There's dots. Things like that. And so you come up with a thing that is interesting that has more than one thing in it. So like Samuel L. Jackson gifted ScarJo and Ryan Reynolds a hive of bees when they got married. And Sir Edmund Hillary listed his occupation as beekeeper. And Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers collects bees. So when you find those three things and you're like, oh, this there's a category here somewhere, right? And you put it in your box, you put it in your giant pile of trivia, unwritten stuff. And then a year down the line, you're reading a book or you're listening to a podcast and you find another famous beekeeper and you know exactly where to put it. You put it in that box. And then when there's 6 or 7 things in that box, then it becomes a category. So somebody asks me how many hours it takes a week to write trivia. I don't know. It's about 3 years a week.
That's a good point because I often do the same thing. I find something out and I think it's interesting, and I kind of like put it in a spot. And when I compare it with some other things and make like a round or a night out of it, then it becomes trivia. And so there is no, yeah, people ask me that all the time. And my answer is always, well, if I'm really inspired and I'm on a roll, I could probably write an entire set in an hour or two. That's rare that it happens, but it's not like it's never happened. And there are other times when it's taken me weeks or months to put together one night of trivia. because I'm working on an idea and it's just gestating slowly. So yeah, it's very very much. And actually, that reminds me, the way I met you, well, we haven't met in person, but the way I found out about you hosting trivia is because you posted something on the Learned League page on Facebook. We're both members of Learned League, which is an online trivia league. And I actually had an
Mhm.
idea for a quiz, which is going to be one of the one days, and it'll be next week on April 2nd. If you're a Learned League member, by the time this comes out, it'll have already been out. But of course, by all means, make sure you play it. It's called Stuff, and it's a quiz about stuff. And the author's note is it's stuff you know, stuff you don't know, stuff maybe you should know, and stuff you think you might know. But there's some stuff for everybody in it. And when you play the quiz, you'll find out what I mean when I say it's about stuff. Let's just say
Yeah,
the word stuff will come up a lot in all the questions. Kind of similar to like your B thing there, right? It was just that was the germ that fed the idea that became the quiz.
yeah, you
So
can't force it. You never know when it's gonna strike. But to answer your question, that because I sort of answered a different question, but to answer your question about themes, I don't like to let the calendar bully me. So I'm unlikely to do like a this week in history because then people could study for it. If I do that every week, people would know. Or if there's St. Patrick's Day, I'm not going to do a St. Patrick's Day round in March. I might do it in November.
I like that.
Yeah, but I don't like the idea that people would be able to study or anticipate what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I fair enough. And you have some pretty steady regulars that come in. Do you do any sort of cumulative totals at your quizzes or anything like that, where there's like a seasonal champion or a yearly champion or anything like that?
I'm open to it in the future. I haven't done it. We've been kicking it around as an idea. The teams rotate a lot, so some of my Monday teams will show up on Friday or Thursday. It's like whatever works for their schedule with their different friend groups. Or yeah, so they move around and they change their names, and it's at some point it would be nice to do, but no, I don't currently do that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, and that reminds me, we were talking before we started recording. So your quiz is one where you run the same quiz basically every night for a week. So teams don't come in multiple nights; they just come in one night. And actually, there's a guy in Ottawa, Paul Paquette, runs the Ottawa Trivia League, and that's the same process he does. And he's actually going to be the guest on the, or he was the guest because we're recording this after that will have aired on the fourth episode, I believe, of Quizzing in America, which will come out a week from the Monday when we're recording this. But you can go back and listen to that. And he does run. It's called the Ottawa Trivia League for a reason because he keeps the point totals. I don't know if you do this right now. Do you keep the point totals and post them on your website for like? So if I went on Monday, I can see, well, boy, I would have won on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday if I'd have gone, or if I go on Thursday and play, I can see how would I have done against the teams that played on Monday and Tuesday. And then he has, I think it runs like 10 or 12 weeks, and they have a champion and a trophy that gets to the team. So even if it's not a big event, it is kind of a fun way to keep track of how you're doing and compare your team to other teams, and maybe keeps teams coming in more regularly because it's kind of a league format as opposed to just a one-off trivia night. I don't know if you've done or thought of doing something like that, but maybe look into it.
Yeah, that sounds good. I do keep track of the scores, but they're not exactly equivalent. So if I run the quiz on Monday, it's got usually 6 rounds of between 7 and 10 questions per round, and then there's a music round that's always last. And the music round is almost always music, but sometimes it's other kinds of audio. I might cut several questions from Monday if they're too hard, or I might change the wording of things, or I might add questions later. So you're not getting exactly the same quiz on Monday as you are on Thursday or Friday. It does polish throughout the week, and I find that that's really helpful for my learning how to make good quizzes. Like I'm just seeing what works and what
Absolutely.
doesn't.
There are definitely, sometimes you write a question, you think it's going to be a great question and go over well, and you ask it, and you're like, oh my God, I got a bunch of blank stares and nobody knows what I'm doing. But you're like, well, if
Yeah.
I'm going to use this material again, I now know that with that question, I need to amend it and change it somehow to make it more accessible or more interesting or whatever. And it's good that you have the ability to do that, and the just self-awareness to say, huh, this one didn't go over as well as I planned. Let me see how I can make it better. And I think that makes for basically a better quiz master and a better quiz for the people that are playing. So good on you
That's
for
the
doing
idea.
that. Yeah.
It's
And so,
it's the hardest part of our job is figuring out what other people know.
yeah,
So there's a lot of quizzes that are structured like we'll do three easy, three medium, and three hard. And I don't do that because I can't trust myself to know what is easy or what is hard. I just ask a bunch of questions that I think are interesting, and if you think they're too hard, then you better get good.
yeah. And, that's another question people always ask, like, are your questions hard? And the answer is, I don't know because I don't know what you know.
Yeah,
If I ask, like yesterday, there was a team that got all of the Pokemon answers on the Pokemon question that I had no idea on. I got zero. Another team went 12 for 12. So, for them, that was the easiest question of the night. For me, you might as well have been asking the question in Chinese because I didn't have a clue. So, it's
yeah,
all dependent on each individual's own knowledge. I mean, there are certain things you can do to make questions that are unquestionably easy or
yeah,
unquestionably difficult, which I like to avoid kind of both extremes if I can, because I think both of those make for a less fun quiz when
yeah.
everybody knows it because it's stupid easy or when nobody knows it because it's stupid hard.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that is a question that I think about constantly is what is like the philosophy of difficulty? What is makes a difficult question? What makes an easy one? And you mentioned Learned League, they keep track of stats on league-wide answers, and there are categories of questions that the league and presumably the audience generally outside of Learned League knows more than other things. So most people don't know classical music, opera, world art as well as they know food and drink, movies, television, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, but movies and TV have a problem of being, and sports have a problem of being like chronologically constrained. So people will say they're a fan of sports, they want more sports questions. That's a lie. They want more basketball questions from LA from the 90s, right? Like they don't want highlight, they don't want Cleveland sports. They want like
Yes.
their thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a 60-year-old will have a different set of things that they movies they know that they think are obvious than a 21-year-old obviously. So things that are a little bit immune to that problem are categories like geography, which changes a lot slower, food, drink changes a lot slower, science. It doesn't matter what age you are, NaCl is still salt, right?
Yeah.
You still have the same number of bones in your hand no matter what year you graduated high school.
Yeah, I am. I've become a huge fan of the BBC game show Pointless, and
Yeah.
they have a thing on there when somebody says a question is before their time or they're too young for a question, and the hosts always have this reaction of, "You never say that because I wasn't around when dinosaurs were around, but I know what a Tyrannosaurus Rex is." But there are definitely questions that can be more generational and more niche. But when you ask about the Beatles, doesn't matter if you're 20 years old or 60 years old, you should have some familiarity with the Beatles to a degree. You don't have
Yeah.
to know everything, but yeah.
Yeah, there's some topics that are sort of in the trivia canon, right? Like you're talking about the Beatles. And I think that some of those things can fall out of the trivia canon over time. Like if you ever pick up an old box of Trivial Pursuit from the 80s, so much of that is no longer relevant, not accurate per se, but like no one would know who these actors are or what this music thing is.
Yes, that is
Um,
very true. The entertainment category, the original Trivial Pursuit, I remember when I was younger, that was like impossible. I was like, how do people know these? Of course, my parents, that was their TV and movies they grew up with. So they knew all of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the New York Times crossword set of canonical answers, like they're a little bit constrained by how many vowels are in a word. And they used to give a clue that was really common that was Charlie Chaplin's wife, and it's
Oh
Una.
yeah. Una.
But now they've started to change it. So it's not Charlie Chaplin's wife, it's Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter who was in Game of Thrones, who's also named
Yeah.
Una.
I was gonna say Game of Thrones actress, right? Yeah, because
Yeah.
I do the New York Times crossword puzzle every day, so I've seen that. I've seen exactly what you're talking about with how that clue has evolved over time. So now
Yeah.
your game is a pen and paper game, right? You're not answering on phones or tablets or dry erase boards or anything.
Yeah. No phones or tablets. I'm not opposed to it morally. I just, it's easier to do the pen and paper for me.
I'm definitely more of a traditionalist. I prefer the pen and paper game, although I've played fun phone games as well. Now, tell me a little bit about your game. You said it's usually 6 rounds.
Yeah, it's 6 rounds. The size of the round varies depending on the round itself. It could be 6 questions, it could be 10 or 11. It all sort of depends. But I try to keep to 15 minutes a round, except for the first round, which I like to be a little longer because when people come in, they're building their teams. They have a friend who's running late, or there's a team that shows up, a little bit behind schedule. I would rather somebody show up at the last few minutes of round one than the first few minutes of round two. Then they're more likely to stick around and decide to play. And so,
And so
yeah,
your rounds then you ask the whole slate of questions before people turn in the answers. It's not like you ask a question, you turn in the answer.
correct. And yeah,
Okay.
one reason for that is because I have a lot of secret themes. Yeah, and another
I
reason
love
is
that.
is because like I said, if somebody shows up late, they still have a chance to get the first couple of questions.
Sure. I, I
Go to the
I agree
bathroom or
with both
whatever.
those points. I like them both. The themes I find are great ways to help me kind of control what I'm writing and keep it focused. And two, it's a good way to give people another entry into the answer if they don't know the question itself. If you pick up on the theme, and then you have a finite list of possibilities of what the answer could be, right?
Yeah,
So, all right. Well, I would love to play one of your quizzes or as much of one of your quizzes as we can get in. So, I know you said you do an audio round. We'll probably have some sort of workaround for that because I don't want to get in any trouble with
yeah.
licensing and so forth. But
I was planning on
if you want,
skipping that.
okay,
Yeah.
very good, excellent. If you want to go ahead and give your spiel if you want to, and or just jump right into it, explain like how it works. Is there any wager component, or is every question worth 1 point, 2 points, something like that?
Every question's worth a point unless otherwise stated. Occasionally, I'll find a situation where, like, sets of three, where I'll ask a question that has three answers. And then if you get two of them right, that's worth a half a point. And if you get all three of them right, that's worth a whole point. Because I wouldn't want to have that round be worth a point each for each of the three answers, because then that round would be worth so many other points. It'd be like the golden snitch in Quidditch. And then it doesn't matter how many quaffles you get through the loop. It's irrelevant. So yeah, we're just gonna get through it. I guess yeah, there's no wagering. It's just people will sorry, having a little nervous.
No, no worries.
So yeah, no wagering. And so I'm gonna read some questions. You write down the answers at the end of each round. I'll read the answers and then I read your team name and you tell me how you did. It's on the honor system. So just make sure no cheating. Bribing the
Okay, so
bartender doesn't count as cheating.
and so you don't score them; they score
I
themselves.
Yeah, they score themselves, and then they just hold up the fingers for however many points they got, and that's it.
All right. Well, we're gonna. You don't have them trade or anything either, huh?
I used to do that and stopped doing it during COVID, and also because it was taking too long. And
Okay.
this allows me to cram 50 questions into an hour and a half. So
All right. Well, you
yeah,
know what? If we got 50 questions or close to it, let's get to it and start with round one.
let's get to it. We got a secret theme, Jeremy. So all these answers have something in common. You figure out what that is. That would be worth an extra point. Starting with number one. In Greek theater, the group of actors who comment collectively on the action is called what?
Okay. I want to say that it's the audience or the chorus. I
Hmm.
want that's my first thoughts. So, and
Yeah,
I don't tell me if I'm right or wrong because obviously with the theme, I want to but
yeah.
that's right now that's where I'm debating. So, audience
Well,
and chorus. So, let's go to question 2 and I may come back and revisit that and change my mind on that. But that's my
all right.
initial.
Well, it's a good direction. Number two, the Powerpuff Girls were created in an experiment in which the professor accidentally adds this fictional substance.
Oh, I know this somewhere in my head. I'm trying to remember. Oh boy. Professor Utonium. Oh, maybe it's Utonium because that's the name of the professor. I don't know if it is Utonium, but
Mm,
Utonium, I think, is the name of the professor who created the Powerpuff Girls.
well, I
So
don't
that's
remember offhand if that's true, but I'll we could look
well,
that up later.
then I feel like maybe that's not the substance.
It
But
might
anyway,
not.
yeah.
So,
I'm trying. I know this is in my head because I certainly know enough about the Powerpuff Girls to have this somewhere. I'm just
yeah,
definitely a guy that created them. All right, well, let's move
yeah.
on to 3.
3, we got a constellation of hotels and resorts in the Catskills became a haven for New York City Jewish people in the 50s and 60s, began the careers of dozens of Jewish entertainers, especially comedians. The area became known as the Blank Belt for a food served there.
Well, being Jewish helps on this one. This is the Borscht Belt. That one I'm 100% positive of. So,
you're 100% correct. So
yeah.
moving on, number 4. The 5th largest oil company by revenue began as the California branch of Standard Oil until it was spun off in 1911 due to antitrust actions. Its name references an important element of the TV show Stargate.
That is interesting. Oh, Chevron, I think. I think it's Chevron. I'm not.
It is Chevron.
Okay. Well, remember,
Yes.
you know, well, all right. Don't tell me if I'm right or wrong, because I want to come back. Because now going back to the first one,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely chorus, because I'm seeing CH theme with Borscht, Chevron, and chorus, which tells me Utonium is probably definitely wrong. But we'll go on to question 5 and see if my are on point.
We shall see. Number 5, several species of deciduous shrubs that have odd blossoms that look like little spindles of yellow or red wires bloom around wintertime. And the bark and twigs are distilled to make an astringent liquid, which you might have in your medicine cabinet.
Repeat that for me one more time.
So it's a tree, sort of a shrub, deciduous shrubs that have these odd spindly yellow or sometimes red blossoms that bloom around wintertime, and they're very pretty. But the bark and the twigs are distilled to make an astringent, which you might have in your medicine cabinet.
Okay. So I was thinking chrysanthemum, but I don't know that is, I don't know the whole medicine cabinet thing. Like, I have no idea if that makes sense with that. But right now it makes sense with the theme. So I'm going to say chrysanthemum, but let's go to question 6.
Question 6, the name of Geralt of Rivia's horse, or the last name of the popular science author of Stiff, Bonk, Spook, Gulp, Grunt, and Fuzz.
Whose horse?
Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series.
And what's the name of the book?
Stiff, Bonk, Spook, Gulp, Grunt, and Fuzz are all books by what author?
Yeah, I got nothing on that. That is not either of those. Neither of those are getting me there. And so now, if the CH theme is right, that's not going to help me come up with an answer, because it seems like the CH can be anywhere in the answer. It doesn't have to be at the start if borscht is part of that theme. So I will say coach, because, you know, why not name your horse Coach? All right.
Number 7 is the final one. Well, it's second to final one. 7, the penultimate one. The currency of Greece before it joined the euro in 2001. A hint is if you remove the letters associated with the secret theme, it becomes a word associated with question number 1.
100% on this one, and then definitely drachma. And if you remove the CH, it becomes drama, which would certainly be the Greek chorus. And Powerpuff, I believe it's chemical X.
It is
the
indeed.
Substance. So I will go back and I will change Utonium to chemical X, but I still have no idea on the horse. So I'm sure I got that wrong. Is chrysanthemum right?
Well, so at this point, what would happen is I would say, does anyone need any repeats? And then when people ask for repeats, the ones they ask for repeats on are a hint that I probably need more clues, maybe. If everybody wants the same one, I might have worded something wrong. So then I will add extra hints. So for number 6, an extra hint I would add would be that it's an insect and a fish.
Is there a fish called a roach?
There is a fish called a roach.
Okay, because that's an insect with a CH. So we'll go with, I guess, a roach. So there you go.
Yeah. And the plant was witch hazel.
I should have come up with that.
But you got all the other ones.
Yeah. No, I did know you could have in your medicine cabinet. I just wasn't where my mind was. All right, well, so I don't know if that was 7 questions plus the bonus point for the theme. We'll say I got 6 plus, so 7 points, we'll say, out of 8 in that round.
Yeah, doing great. Ready for round 2?
Absolutely.
All right, round 2 is add a letter. So you're going to take the answer to question 1, add a letter somewhere in the answer to get the answer to number 2, add a letter to number 2 to get 3, and so on and so forth. So
and will I be scrambling the letters too, or it will just simply be an insertion of a letter?
It's an insertion.
Okay.
I think. Let me see if I can remember. No,
out as we go.
Yeah, it's a scrambling. It's been a minute. So it's an anagram. So
Okay.
question one, an Egyptian god of the sun, an aspect of which was Aten.
I believe the Egyptian god of the sun is Ra, R-A. So we'll start with that. Don't tell me if I'm right. We'll go on to question two.
We'll start there. In the body, it's where you'd find the brachial artery.
Brachial artery. So I assume that's probably going to be in your arm because that would add a letter to Ra to make
Yeah,
arm. So we'll go with arm. All right.
that's right. Number three is the first name of the New York-born musician who sang Vivir Mi Vida and was married to Jennifer Lopez for 10 years.
So that is, of course, Mark Anthony. So we'll add a C to arm and rearrange to get Mark.
Sure. In pool, this is a stroke that causes the cue ball to hit two balls simultaneously.
That would be when you carom, I believe, in pool.
Doing great. The last name of a president of France.
Macron. We'll add an N to carom and rearrange to get Macron.
Indeed. Number six is an Italian electrical engineer credited with the invention of the radio.
That would be Marconi. And if people have listened to episode 2, they'll know that he is Nobel Prize winner, Marconi. That was he was the answer to the final question for the BP trivia game we did in episode 2 of Quizzing in America.
Ah, nice. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Number seven, in physics and acoustics, this is a wave whose frequency is a positive integer multiple of the fundamental base frequency.
Okay, so now I got to add something to Marconi and rearrange to get a word. Harmonic?
Harmonic. There you are.
All right.
So that's 7 for 7. And the thing about those rounds is that people perceive them to be difficult, but they also do really well at them. And I love that when they're like, oh, this was hard and everybody got 100%. Like, not everybody nailed it.
Those are fun types of rounds because, it's one of those things where you might get some blank looks at first, but then once you figure out how it works, you're like, oh, like, for instance, I don't know if I would have known where the brachia artery was, right? Like, not something I would be familiar with. I certainly would not have gotten harmonic without this, without knowing, like, okay, I have Marconi. Ooh, sorry. What letter can I add to Marconi and then rearrange and make a word? So
yeah. So that's I like making people feel good, but I want to do it in a sneaky way so that they feel bad first.
Which is a great way to do it. All
Yeah.
right. So now I'm at 14 out of 15. Let's move on to round 3.
Round 3, we got a before and after round.
Oh, I love those.
So yeah, I guess for the benefit of the audience, you know how before and after rounds work. But if I said an Azure Corvette and a car collecting late night host, it would be Blue Jay Leno. So number 1, a brand of spiced rum and the filmmaker behind Super Size Me.
So that would be a little Captain Morgan and the dearly departed, I believe, Morgan Spurlock. Didn't he pass away last year?
Yeah, recently departed Morgan Spurlock. So Captain Morgan Spurlock.
Yeah.
Number 2 is the first American to orbit the Earth and an actress from 101 Dalmatians and Hillbilly Elegy.
And still waiting for her Academy Award. John Glenn Close.
Well, I hear she's pretty close to getting one.
Yeah.
Next, we've got Group 18 on the periodic table and the last 4 planets.
The noble gas giants.
Sure is.
Yeah, that one was, I was like, sometimes I get confused on my periodic table. I'm like, the halogens, no, and then I'm like, oh wait, the last 4 planets are the gas giants, the noble gas. There you go. So that's what I love about before and after rounds is you get those aha moments, right?
Yeah, I like the groans. I like the, that sort of thing. Next, we've got the typesetting tray containing the large letters and a Cleveland College.
Okay, so the Cleveland College Case Western. So I'm just going to go with uppercase Western.
That's right.
All right.
And then we got an epic poetic work in 3 parts and the Daily Show channel show.
Ooh, okay. So we have the channel that the Daily Show is on.
The
so
Daily
Comedy
Show
Central.
channel.
Yeah, so Comedy Central. And so tragedy in 3 parts.
I said a poetic work.
Oh, poetic work. Oh, the Divine Comedy.
Yeah.
The Divine Comedy channel.
Yeah, Divine Comedy Central. Sure.
Yeah, the Divine Comedy Central. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I got so excited that I realized it was the Divine Comedy that I forgot about the Comedy Central part. But yes, that I would have certainly eventually stumbled into.
Well, speaking of stumbling, I stumbled the question because I was rewriting it on the fly.
Oh, I've done that myself,
Yeah. Number 6, we've got the rank attained by Magnus Carlsen, Boris Spassky, Gary Kasparov, and a PBS drama show best known for its adaptations of novels.
Grand Masters at Chess and Masterpiece Theater for Grand Masterpiece Theater.
There you go. Next, a candy bar with advertisements featuring Bart Simpson and several bodies of water.
Well, you better not lay a finger on my Butterfinger Lakes. Butterfinger Lakes.
That's right. If I was doing this live, I might have noticed that I had two upstate New York questions and I might have edited that out. But for the benefit of your audience, yeah. And finally, a former vice president, the author of Burr and Lincoln, and a British hairstylist. This is a threefer.
Okay. A former vice president, the author of Burr and Lincoln, you said?
Yep.
And a hairstylist?
Yep, from Britain.
All right. So,
yeah, the hairstylist is also a brand of hair care products, shampoos, conditioners, etc.
All right, read that to me one more time. Let me see if I can get this because it's bugging me right now.
It's a three-parter. So it's a former vice president, the author of Burr and Lincoln, and a British hairstylist.
So I'm trying to think if like Paul Mitchell is a British hairstylist, and then no, Al Gore Vidal Sassoon.
Nice work.
Yeah, I was like, oh wait, no. One of my favorite before and afters is Gore Vidal Sassoon, and I totally forgot. I'm like, oh, obviously Al Gore is the vice president. Then very nice, very nice. Yeah, that took me too long to get. I should have come about it quicker. But I like it. I'm gonna give me an 8 for 8. Make me a 22
well done.
for 23.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you. I did very well. So next we've got a miscellaneous category. I always do a miscellaneous category because it gives me some place to put all the stuff that I come up with that doesn't really fit anywhere else.
Sure.
And number 1 is last month. Well, I shouldn't say last month. Let's restart because we don't know when this is going to air. It's going to air in April.
Well, yeah, recently. No.
So recently, in February, a still at-large criminal poached 100,000 of these from a truck in Pennsylvania, which is weird because in France, 1 would be enough.
Repeat that again.
In February, a still at-large criminal poached 100,000 of these from a truck in Pennsylvania. They haven't caught the thief yet, but it's weird because 1 would be enough in France.
So it's not Luigi Mangione.
No, I don't need the name of it.
Poached in Pennsylvania. I
need to know what they poached. Yeah.
Eggs. Didn't somebody steal a bunch of eggs?
Yeah, they poached 100,000 eggs.
Yeah.
Egg poachers.
That's big money right now.
Yeah, and 1 is an ouf in French.
And very cute with the poaching too.
Yeah, thank you. Next, a California-based video game company responsible for The Sims, Mass Effect, and Madden NFL has a game that sounds like no in Japanese, but it's spelled differently.
So you just want the company or you want the game?
The company. Yeah.
So EA Sports?
Yeah, or EA is the company, yeah.
Okay.
And EA is no in Japanese.
Oh, I don't speak Japanese, so I was a little lost on that, but I figured it was something like that, yeah.
Yeah, maybe somebody on your team would speak Japanese.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's where teamwork helps out. It's like, well, I think it's EA Sports, but I don't know what the Japanese part is. Somebody goes, well, that's basically how you say no in Japanese. I'm like, oh, well, that's definitely right.
Yeah, working together, teamwork. Next, Central Asian mountain range has a name where each letter in the name of the mountain range appears exactly twice.
This is the Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah, Caucasus. So 8 letters, each letter appears twice. And then we've got, this is just fun, 3 different words. 1 is an almond syrup, 1's a small pasta shape, and the other is a Mexican spiced rice beverage. They all come from the Latin word for barley, despite none of them being made from barley. So that one would be a 3-point round, 3-point question.
Okay, so read the 3 things again.
So 1 is an almond syrup. You might know from cocktail making or get it at a coffee shop. 1 is a small pasta shape, and the other is a Mexican spiced rice beverage.
Okay, so my first thought, which I think is wrong, I was looking at ouzo and orzo because I think they're going to be similar words, but I don't think that those fit like any of the things. So now I'm trying to think like, is this like a matcha, maca, or, oh wait, no, horchata is like the Mexican beverage.
Yeah.
So what? Horchata, and then the other's a small pasta?
Yeah, a small pasta shape, and the first one is an almond syrup.
Almond syrup. So I don't know. That's not amaretto, I don't think.
I'll say almost nobody got the almond syrup part.
Yeah. Okay. So small pasta. You know, it's funny. I was watching an episode of the Floor. I watched last night's episode, and one of the categories was pasta, and there were some tough ones on there. And I'm trying to think of like what the small one. Oh, it's like or orachetta or a sheet.
Well, orecchiette is little ears, so
Okay.
not from the word for barley.
Okay. Yeah. Well, fair enough. I don't think I think I only have horchata. I don't have the other two.
Well, you're gonna kick yourself because you said orzo already,
Oh, was
and
that what it is?
it is orzo is the pasta.
Oh,
Horchata is the third thing, and then the first thing is orgeat, Orgeat.
oh, all right. Well, whatever. You got to miss a couple. Stay
Yeah,
human.
yeah, it's great. You're doing great. So we got the last name of a Malcolm in the Middle and Breaking Bad actor is an anagram for an Appalachian city, for an Appalachian city.
Okay. So Cranston,
Yeah,
and you want both the actor and the city, I assume?
please.
Yeah. So Cranston is an anagram of what city?
Yeah.
That,
Now, I had some
we,
pushback when I did this question because I'm doing this question in Oregon, and to people on the West Coast, anything east of Denver is the East Coast.
yeah,
And
no, absolutely.
yeah, and so
Um,
that's not Appalachian, and it is, but
oh,
it's
Scranton.
there you go.
Yeah, that I like sometimes you look at these anagrams and I'm like, man, it's not coming to me, and then it just a light bulb goes on, and I'm like, oh, just move the S to the front of Cranston. Boy, that is a fun question in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm going to make
Uh,
that into a trivia question. See, this is how trivia happens. That is great. I love it.
where do you get your ideas from? Other friends, from your
Yeah,
friends?
no, I mean seriously, like that's I think that is gonna like I'm gonna be like, actor who won multiple Emmy Awards for Best Actor in a Drama Series for a show that ran. Take one letter from the middle of his name, put it at the front, and you get the name of a city with a population that is the
Yeah,
third or fourth largest, and it's whatever. I'll write the question,
yeah,
whereas you'll have two ways in, and you can get there. And I
yeah.
think
You
it's a
can
great
make it
question.
a The Office reference if you wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Next, we've got Dominic Toretto's favorite taxonomic rank, or a group of languages descending from a common ancestor.
So family, because
Yeah,
Dominic Toretto is all about the family.
yeah.
Oh,
This
and
one's
then it's
not
just
that.
family.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's just
it's
family.
we're both family. That's
Yeah,
that. By the way, I love that. That is a great way to ask a really simple question and make it fun.
yeah. I do
Like,
that round a lot. I call it a disambiguation round based on the Wikipedia disambiguation page, or just
yeah,
multiple avenues. And the answer is just the same answer for all three questions, basically.
sure. That might be thus far. I'm going to call that my favorite question of the quiz.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll try not to feel bad on behalf of the other ones.
No, I mean, there's always a few that stand out to me. That one stands out right away as like, that's a fun question. I heard it. I was like, I have no idea oh, duh, and then it's like, yeah, that's totally what it is. All right, question
Yeah.
7.
7, we got an article of clothing hidden in the name of the Aztec feathered serpent god without rearranging any letters.
Okay, so it is not a Quetzal.
Now, the Quetzal's the bird named after the feathered serpent god.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of it's Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's Quetzalcoatl, which is coat.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
had a bonus available because if you do rearrange the letters, there's 2 other French articles of clothing you can spell from that. And I'm going to let you think about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Let's see. I don't know French well enough. If I was playing with some of the people I normally play with, I think we'd get that. Like, is there like an Alcott or something like that, or an Alcote?
There's a culottes. And
Culottes.
yeah, you might know culottes. The sans culotte were the some of the revolutionary people in revolutionary France. And then toque or toque is a
Oh
especially
yeah,
French
chef's hat.
Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, yeah. Could have gotten both those. Certainly know of both articles. Just didn't think hard enough. But
We're doing
we're
rapid
gonna
fire
give
today, Jeremy.
ourselves points there. So we're gonna say we're at 28 out of 31 because I didn't get the bonus there. I don't know. So we're gonna give us that.
Yeah. So Richard Madden and Kit Harington played Stark sons in Game of Thrones, a show which had a character called Cersei. What Marvel movie also featured both men, along with a different character called Cersei?
Which two actors?
Name the Marvel movie. The actors are Richard Madden and Kit Harington.
Kip Harrington. Which Marvel movie was he in? I've seen them all. They've gotten progressively worse. Although I haven't seen the most recent Captain America, but is he in the Eternals? Kip, was it
Was
the
in the
Eternals?
Eternals. Yes.
Okay.
So
That
just like
might be my least favorite of all the Marvel movies, by the way.
I don't think you're alone in that.
Yeah,
I didn't ask it because it's a good movie. I asked it because it had that symmetry.
sure.
Yeah. And that's a fun thing that people often confuse the questions that I ask with things that I like. Not necessarily.
Well, and I think, by the way, a good quiz master, a good trivia writer writes about things they don't necessarily like, right? Because if you only write about things you like, your quiz is going to be very limited and not going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I find that in the quest to write about things that I don't know, if somebody wants me to write a question about like American Girl dolls, like I don't know much about that. So if I was going to write about it, it would probably just be the first paragraph of the Wikipedia page, which isn't fun for anybody. So like what I want is the connection. What I want is like an American Girl doll who has a connection to some thing in science or history or language or some way
Sure.
that I can relate it to the rest of the thing. And in order to do that, I need to talk to people who like that stuff and really get to know their brains about it.
Yep.
So last question, a miscellaneous. In American Sign Language, if you make the sign for the letter O with your right hand and move your left hand in the L position forward past your other hand, what Texas city have you made the sign for?
If you make your L,
Yeah,
so what? Reread that for me.
yeah. So in American Sign Language, you make the sign for the letter O with your right hand. You move your left hand in the L position forward past your other hand. What Texas city have you made the sign for?
Oh, El Paso.
Yeah, and that is real. That is true.
Is that really true? Wow,
Yeah,
that's hysterical that that is true. All right,
yeah.
that's also a contender for favorite question of the quiz, by the way. That's awesome. I love that fact.
Thank you. And
So,
then once I did the answer, then I would tell people like that. There's also the sign for pasteurized milk is the sign for milk, and then they move it past their eyes.
that is, boy, ASL it makes a lot of sense, which, it should. That's great.
Yeah,
All right.
they got
All right.
jokes.
Yeah. So I thought we were at the end of the round. So now we'll do, I think 30 for 33, we'll say. And do we have another
Yeah,
round?
we do if you got time.
Sure. Absolutely.
So you mentioned the Cranston Scranton anagram where you take the S out of the middle and you move it to the beginning. I have a round that I do occasionally that's called looping anagrams, and I asked my audience yesterday what categories I should give you, and this is one that they told me to do. Was you take the S from the end of a word and you move it to the beginning of the word. You don't rearrange any of the other letters. That's all you do.
Okay.
So yeah, these arachnids can be difficult to remove from the skin.
Because your ticks stick.
Stick. Pigments made from metals are less buoyant than water.
Pigments made from metal are less buoyant than water. Inks sink. Inks. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, ink sink.
Yeah, I was able to clean my cooking vessels except for a stubborn stain.
That would be the spot. Spot.
Yeah.
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 I'm getting the hang of this.
Yeah. The barcodes on the shelf-stable peas I bought wouldn't go through, so the cashier had to enter them manually.
Oh, can scan.
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Listening to the Kind of Blue album always makes me happy.
Kind of Blue album always makes me happy. So that's Miles Smile.
That's my favorite
That's
sound.
a Miles Davis album. I was trying to move the S from the end of Davis to the beginning, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
I love the sounds that people make when they get the spark of realization. It's great. In the Greek underworld, number 6, you'll find this word for ghost or spirit.
Hades Shade.
That's right. And finally, Gandalf seems to employ people for jobs from this part of Middle Earth.
He hires from the Shire. I like that one. That's cute.
He sure doesn't. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm. That's you got the feeling of my quiz. There's a lot of wordplay. There's a lot of puzzles. There's a lot of themes.
That's fun. And I know you typically you end with like an audio round of some sort, which we won't do here for licensing reasons, but we'll just assume I did really well on that, even though that's usually what I do the worst on, which is one of the
Yeah.
reasons I love it. I can't do it on a podcast because I don't have to look really dumb when answering questions. In fact, the quiz I was talking about that I went to last night with the Pokemon halftime, the last 2 weeks, I think I've gotten a combined 2 out of 10 on the audio rounds that they've done. So I'm
Yeah.
very poor at audio rounds.
So you'll notice that I have a lot of questions that like not only are the categories themselves multidisciplinary, but the questions are multidisciplinary. So there's multiple topics, avenues within each question and within the whole category of questions. So to answer your question from earlier of like a whole theme about Pokemon, I would have a hard time. I wouldn't do a whole round about Pokemon or a whole round about 80s hair metal, because it's the goal is to have every question be as accessible to everyone as possible.
Yeah, it'd be a little niche. Now Pokemon, they have such weird names, you can't really incorporate other things a lot. 80s hair metal, I'll say this. You could do a round where you ask about bands like Cinderella, Poison, but because the names are generic enough, extreme, you can give other ways in,
Yes.
Disney animated cartoon, Batman villainess who loves plants, X Games activities, stuff
Yeah,
like that.
you
So
definitely
there are
could. And
ways to
I
make even niche subjects accessible, right?
Yeah, and I might do that.
Yeah.
But like when somebody was like, "Oh, hey, can you do more questions about that?" Right? If somebody asked me to do questions about 80s hair metal, and then I did a round about 80s hair metal, but all the questions were actually about, DC comic villains, they might get disappointed because I'm not asking questions about the thing that they like. I'm asking like a round about a scance, I'm tripping around it.
Yeah, I think it's okay as long as you work in one or two that are maybe more dedicated to that subject. But yeah, I think it's nice to vary it up. Or even if you ask about stuff they like, but also give other avenues in for people who don't know 80s hair bands, who weren't alive in the 80s, or who don't have as good a taste in music as that person. Because we
Yeah,
all know 80s hair bands are the best form of music ever. I'm wearing a
it's
Bret
your show,
Michaels
so I'm
hat
not going to
as we
argue with
speak.
you.
Yeah, that is my love and my passion. Well, thank you, Forrest, for taking the time to chat with me, to give me a quiz. I hope folks out there liked it. If they're ever in the Eugene area, which, by the way, like I said, I visited last year, is gorgeous and well worth a visit. I hope to get back. I want to go someday for the track and field trials. That's on my bucket list. I
Yeah.
think that would be an amazing thing to attend. But for folks in the Oregon area, in the Eugene area, if they want to find you, what is your website?
So I'm at FWD Trivia site, and I would like to, before we sign off, I forgot to talk about the radio show that I have on
Oh, yeah.
NPR on KLCC. It's called The Conundrum, and you can catch me on your favorite podcast app or your least favorite podcast app. It's also on there. It's called The Conundrum. KLCC's Conundrum. That airs every Fridays, and it's kind of Oregon Pacific Northwest centered questions, but not exclusively so.
That's still fun, and people can check it out from wherever they're at. And
Yeah.
if there's companies out there in Oregon who are looking to do an event, I'm sure you do private events and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm doing my seventh trivia wedding coming up soon.
Oh, wow. I've only
Yeah,
done one of those.
it was a lot of fun. It's my favorite thing is being able to write questions about the bride and groom and their family in ways that aren't stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the tattoo on that? No, that not that.
No,
But
yeah,
yeah, that's.
I love to customize games for whether it's corporate clients or private
Mhm.
parties or events. I think it's a great way to add a little personal touch to an event. And another reason why you should go out and hire a trivia professional like Forrest or myself when you have an
Yes.
event and you want to do some trivia and you want to do it right and make it fun. So there you
Yeah.
go. Anything else you want to say before we call it a show?
Yeah, that's about all. Thanks so much for having me on the show, Jeremy. I love this. The opportunity to talk
Absolutely.
about
And I hope
the
I did a
theory of
better
trivia.
job of not interrupting and of not using the word like so much. And by the way, no matter what you think of the show, hopefully you enjoy it. But if you have feedback and how I can make the show better, always reach out. Quizzinginamerica.com. You can access me via the website or Jeremy at quizzinginamerica.com. You can email me and let me know if you're a quizmaster out there and you want to be on the show. Please let me know. I'm looking for guests. I want to keep doing this as long as I can, talking to as many people as I can, and trying out as many different styles of trivia. So thank you, Forrest, and thank you out there to everybody who is listening. And we're going to call it a day. Good night, all.
Adios.